Sony listened to me. You know that I did a video complaining about the issues of the Cinema Pro app, and now with the presentation of the Xperia Pro I, Sony introduced a new videography pro app, Video Pro for short. And this app is available now as APK for older Xperia devices, and I want to try it out in this video. So let's get started. So I have a Video Pro running here on my Xperia 1 Mark III. So what I'm recording with, it's the Xperia 5 Mark II that I'm using for recording. Also with the, let me show you maybe. I just recorded with one hand. I'm recording my setup with one hand because it's possible. Here you can see what I'm recording with. This is the Xperia 5 Mark II, also using the Videography Pro app, and hopefully also using 1080p 60 frames per second. And I can see the ISO and the shutter jumping around. Let me check again. Yes, it's 1080p 60 frames per second. So before I start you showing what and how the application is running here on, this is now the Xperia 5 Mark II. I'm recording now with the 1 Mark III. I want to talk about who can use this app. So I have it running on the 5 Mark II. That means on the 1 Mark II it will also run fine, but because it is based, I think, from the code base on the Cinema Pro app, and you know that the Cinema Pro app was also available for the Xperia 1. Yes, you guessed it right. The Xperia 1 can also use the Video Pro app. So let me get rid of the warning for heat. And here we have the Xperia 1 using the Video Pro app. And you know what? Maybe I try out the Xperia 1 for vlogging to see how this will work out. So now really the Xperia 1, Generation 1 or Mark 1, recording with the Video Pro app, and I have my microphone plugged in, and you might hear that it might be a little bit louder because it's using a USB Type-C dongle, not a headphone jack, because the Xperia 1 didn't have a headphone jack. So what do you think about the quality here? Stabilization, I think the Video Pro app is doing the Xperia 1 a real treat, because it's improving the video capabilities of this like super crazy. The Xperia 1 Mark II and 5 Mark II had a super video quality already, and with the Video Pro app and its basic mode video also raised slightly the video quality, but with the Video Pro app you get even better quality. So what do you think about this? Really cool, I would say. In general, which smartphones can use the Video Pro app? It's the Xperia 1, the Xperia 5, the 1 Mark II, the 5 Mark II, the 1 Mark III and the 5 Mark III. I love to do this. Anyway, those are the phones that can use this application. Maybe there are even some older Xperia XZ phones, but I'm not so sure, because the codebase is basically like a modified Cinema Pro app, officially from Sony modified, and it's using the same APIs probably, so you have to have some kind of support for this already. Anyway, I want to show you now the user interface and all the features that you have and what Sony fixed in comparison to the Cinema Pro app. So let's take a look at the user interface. Well, and you can see what is going on. The external audio is gone now, so hopefully you can see now what I'm doing here. You can see the user interface and everything. So first of all, it reminds me a little bit of the Cinema Pro app that I told you already, and what we have here is we have the ability to switch from autofocus to manual focus. So I can like get autofocus context here and have autofocus mode here. I don't have the ability to set some points for focus racking or something like this. This is not possible. I have autofocus here. I have the option, the slider would say, maybe I can switch between the ultra wide angle to the main and then to the zoomed in lens setting. That's not possible. I only have the option like to zoom in, like let's do it somewhere on this football goal maybe. Zoom in, and you can see it's purely digital zoom, so there's nothing here right now, but you have a like very smooth zoom, which is sometimes maybe very handy. You can take, of course, a photo here. You can record, have the big record button. You have the display button to have everything clean, as you can see here. Even this little standby that was there gone, and I can have everything like here. You can see a level, you can see time code, you can see previous video, you can see my shutter speed, you can see my ISO, you can see my auto exposure compensation and white balance, as well as the microphone. I can click on this and have the option to set my input volume, what I requested. So it's now here. I can set my input volume for my microphone. I have to set it to 10 to be listenable in any way or form, where I don't have to go to the computer and raise it 500 or 600%. And an output volume, which I really don't like, because I don't get it. So input volume is like, it's the input of the microphone, and output is what you record and how much it will be raised maybe. So I'm not sure right now. If you know what this is doing, just tell me, because I don't know right now. Setting this up in a quick test, I didn't notice much of a difference here. Then the real fun begins with the lock and the auto button. So we have now an auto button that I can switch on, and the camera will do everything automatically. You can see shutter speed changing, you can see maybe ISO changing as well. So this is done automatically. If you unswitch it, you can go to the menu and have now the option to switch between lenses. Like I said, 60mm is supported, the ultra wide angle, the normal 24 and the 70mm only. Even on the Xperia 1 Mark III, the 105mm is not available here. Then we have the iris. You cannot change it here right now because this app is meant for the Xperia Pro I, but I only have the Xperia 1 Mark III here, so I can only set the aperture or the iris to 1.7. HDR I can turn on and off. If I turn it on, I think it is recording then. It is. I think it stopped doing anything for some reason, so it doesn't like HDR. So this is maybe an issue. I think it was working on the 5 Mark II. So HDR you can turn on. I think it will record then in HLG, if I'm not completely mistaken. You can set the frames per second. You can see at 1080p I have 60 frames per second, or 59.94, and 119.88, so 120 frames per second I can record. And I can also go to 4K. And you can see these are 16:9 aspect ratio, also a big contrast to the Cinema Pro app. And here I can also record in 120, 30, 25. For some reason in 4K I have no option to record in 60 frames per second, so I have to record in 120 frames per second, which is a little bit weird. Maybe Sony will add this later as well, hopefully, or it's a limitation of the API. Then we have slow motion on. You cannot change the setting in the current frames per second, but 30 frames per second can set slow motion on, and audio will not be recorded during slow motion. So I have, and here the audio cut off from a microphone for some reason. Anyway, I can record over it. I can use markers here as well, as you can see. So various different markers that I can set up. Center marker, I can even have like a safety zone marker, 80%, or even 90%. It will like mark the safe zone that you have set for yourself, where everything is like it's still in focus, or you have a bit of croppability. You have an aspect ratio marker, 4:3, 1:1, 9:16 for Instagram stories, YouTube stories I think it's called, and TikTok. And of course, this is very helpful. Safety zone, aspect marker, aspect ratio marker, and markers in general are very helpful that you have them here. Otherwise, we have also an option for stabilization, turning it on and off. That's basically it. But then you can see there's also video light that I can turn on in theory, but for some reason it's not working for this lens. And if I switch the lens to 70mm, something like this, it's also not working. For some reason it's not supported on the Xperia 1 Mark III, and I don't think on the 5 Mark II it was also supported. Anyway, what we see in this menu is there's another menu still available at the top right. Let me switch back to 24mm, and the top right you can see number 2, and here you can set various other things like white balance. I can set various different ones here. I have also ISO that I can set up here. And the convenience thing, what I did here, I set the shutter speed to something manually, like 1/120, which is like for 60 frames per second, ideally what I want to have. and the rest will be done automatically. This is a very convenient feature. So I have the double the frame rate as a shutter speed, and the ISO will be turned up and down accordingly, which is pretty awesome and working fine here. Otherwise, I also have the option to set the auto exposure level as well as input volume and output volume, what I already told you before. So that is basically it here in the menu. Then we have also some other settings, like I have the ISO and gain mode. I can switch between the traditional ISO but also gain mode. If I go back now out of here and go to the menu, instead of ISO we have under number 2 gain, which is really exactly what the camera actually does, because we are not putting any film anymore in here. So it is measured in dB instead of some ISO numbers. And yeah, let's go back to settings, get to ISO, and you see also the AGC limit, which is for the gain, auto gain limit that you can set up here for HDR and SDR. If you switch to ISO mode, of course you have an auto ISO limiter here. We can set the limit for HDR, for example, maximum 400 ISO, so it will not go over 400 ISO automatically, so it will regulate for lower light situations with the shutter speed. And I can set it up for SDR as well. With SDR I can go a little bit higher, so this is the highest ISO I want to go before it starts to get more noise, which is pretty cool and awesome that I can set it up like this. Especially useful for low light situations where I want to set a maximum ISO so it doesn't gain grain, there's not so much grain or noise inside of the picture, and it's regulating via the shutter speed, lowering the shutter speed instead of getting the ISO higher. So this is pretty awesome, I would say, and good that you can set it up here as a limit. Then of course what we have as well under project is the file format. So we have here AVC and HEVC that we can switch to. We have media profile where we can give it a title and also save it to internal storage.
The intelligent wind filter.
And we have the intelligent wind filter as well. And then we have the option to set up recording buttons, zoom or volume keys as zoom, or I can set some lock options, either lock the whole screen or only the record in photo button. And the save location button, which allows me to save the location where I am right now via GPS in the video file. And then some maintenance options, level calibration, Bluetooth remote control, which is pretty interesting because Bluetooth remote control allows you to use a Bluetooth device that you can use the grip from Sony, for example, as a start and stop option here, which is pretty awesome as well. And yeah, then we have a tutorial which is pretty short, as you can see here, just a few clicks, and that is basically it. And yeah, basically it showed you what I was showing you as well. And that's basically it in terms of settings then. So this is an HDR test. Let's see how this will look like. So HDR only works with 1080p 30 or 4K 30, so it freezes up with 60 frames per second, which is, I think, a little bit bummer. But yeah, let's see how it will look like. So, ultra wide angle for a change. This is really a cool upgrade. Is it really the upgrade that I wished for? It's like 99% the update that I wished for the Cinema Pro app. Now with the Video Pro app, we have a nice vlogging solution. And the best thing is you can install it up to your Xperia, down to your Xperia 5, Xperia 1, and up to the latest and greatest Xperia phones, which is pretty cool and awesome. I know you don't get the best stabilization on the one. I saw the video of the one, it wasn't quite there, but still I think it's a very good update. We have now the control for the microphone, for the input gain, which is very helpful. We have the option to switch various different lenses. On the 1 Mark III, a 5 Mark III, we have some limits regarding the 105mm lens, but still this is really cool to have this application right now. And for some this might breathe new life into their smartphones, which is also pretty awesome. So thank you for the one guy that shared this APK file. By the way, you can find the APK file down in the description. There's a download link from APK Mirror, so you can trust them. They test everything for viruses, so it should be fine. Otherwise, this is basically everything for this video. If you have some questions, write them down in the comment section. Share, like and subscribe, and until the next time, bye.